On today's show, we're jumping back into our DIY build, and this time we're going to put together the bed and you're going to come along for the ride. Hey, welcome back to The First Layer. My name is Richard Cleveland. I'm your host here 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and every live stream Saturday night, along with my co-host, Brian Baker, who jumps in and keeps me on my toes every week. Brian's also a producer here, along with Jess. Today I'm by myself, and I'm bringing you along for the ride because what we're doing today is we're going to put together our heated bed for our DIY Prusa build. Now, this is not sponsored by Prusa. This is not sponsored by Bear or the individual who created this design. It's not sponsored by anybody. It's all coming out of my pocket. So stick around. We'll let you know how much it all costs. Now, what we're going to do when we reach the end, in the very last episode, we're going to publish the bill of materials. We are also going to publish all the costs for what we paid retail for all of the parts. So you'll get that. Listen, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also ding that little bell so you get notified every time we do a brand new episode, because if you miss something, then you got to go back and check it out again. So let's dive in today. We've got lots to cover. We're going to build up the bed. I'm just going to switch cameras here real quick so you guys can see. We've got our frame right here. Let me just move that out of the way, and I'll move our bed parts in. We'll just kind of review what we've got going on here. So we've got our thermistor, which is just a standard 100K thermistor. We've got some timing belt, which we're going to need. We have the bracket, which we're going to need for the bottom for the timing belt to go onto. We've got our pulleys, our gear. Now this is a 16-tooth gear that we're using. So we're going to have to adjust the timings for a 16-tooth gear. We've got our removable metal spring steel plate from Spool 3D. We have a Prusa Mark 52 magnetic heated bed that is 250 by 210. And your build area is going to be right around that 250, 210 area. So we've got lots of real estate to build whatever we need to on here. Now, this is not a genuine Prusa. This is a knockoff, and I've already printed the little cable cover so you don't touch that or anything doesn't short out on top of that. We've added a couple of screws, and I just put those in, just like Prusa does on their beds. I just added a couple of screws, so when I go and put the heated or the build plate on, I can slide it right up against there, and I know that I'm square on the bed every time. And again, that is magnetic, so you can see that it's not falling off. We do have magnets all along the back there. Now this is a 12-volt bed, so we are going to be using a 12-volt power supply on this. We're going to use a Meanwell, but for now we'll just put that off to the side, and let's show you some of the other stuff that we've got going on. So here we have all of our bearings, and the bearings, they're just a standard 8mm bearing, and these are the block bearings. What Prusa does is they use just the standard bearings, and they use a U-bracket to hold them in. Now, my problem with that is that the U-bracket can crush that bearing if you tighten it too tight. And if you're building your own, chances are you might just do that. Now, we're going to use 4 bearings instead of the standard 3. I'd rather use 4. Just to give me a nice straight bed and I don't get any side movement on it. Now we've already got, like I said, we've got our rods and they fit into our machine. We've already gone ahead and put on our motor in the backside. So we've got our motor already mounted. We've got our idler pulley at the front. Now there's no way on this to adjust tension. That's my only issue with this design. You can't adjust the tension on the bed itself. So let's get started by going ahead and putting all of the screws into our block bearings here. And go ahead and open these all up. Now, one thing about these block bearings is if the bearing inside should ever fail on you, one of the things that you can do is there's a little, let me see if I can get a close-up of this. Let me just go to this camera here real quick. Inside there's a little spring clip that holds the bearing in. There's one on each side. Now you can pull that spring clip out, and this is just a standard LM8 UU bearing that's inside there. So you can pull it out and replace it with just about any bearing that you want, as long as it fits an 8mm rod and will fit inside the block itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and get those mounted. Now there's no right or wrong way to adjust your bed here. Basically it's put it on, get everything set up, and away we go. So we're going to start with our blocks. We're going to get them all put on kind of loosely. We're going to get some hardware, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our packages of screws here. Now, these two packages I got off of Amazon, I believe, and they weren't that bad. I think they were about $35 for the whole package. They come with a variety of M3, M4, and M5 screws, as well as nuts, and these ones are all in black. So they are the anodized ones, I believe, or the alloy. They're the alloy steel ones. And then we have one box of button head, and we have one box of pan head. So what we are going to do is we're going to turn this over. We are going to find some screws, and I think I'm going to use the button head ones here to put these on, because they're nice low profile. On our plate, you can see that we don't have any countersink, so we should just be fine. So we're going to grab a couple of bolts here and just see how those fit. They fit nice. So let's go ahead and start screwing on these little guys. Now, these ones, the M3s, you're going to use a 2.0 millimeter hex wrench to put them on. And we're just going to go ahead and line them up, drop our screw in there. Well, it doesn't look like it uses the 3s. Maybe it uses the 4s on these. I think it does use 4s on here. It does. So we're using 4 millimeter, and we're going to have to change that wrench to our 2.5 millimeter wrench. We'll just go ahead and start putting those in. So you're going to use an M4 bolt to put these on. Now that one seems a little long, so we're going to go to something a little shorter. And this is all part of it. You're going to realize which ones work, which ones don't. That looks like it was an M412, and this is an M48, which should be more than enough for what we want to do. So we're going to drive that one in there. There we go. There we go. Now we get a nice seal to it. And we'll bring that one back. We'll do the opposite corner. You're probably wondering, Rich, why are you doing it corner to corner like that? It's so that I can line up the bearing fairly straight. And I'm not tightening these down to, you know, Herculean tightness. As soon as it stops, I stop. This way I can adjust them if I need to once I put the rod through it. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second, as soon as I get the other one attached. Try not to cross thread these, because you are going into aluminum down here, and if you cross thread them, it could be a real problem for you. So let's get the other one on. What I like to do sometimes, before I get these all set in place, is I'll take the rod and I will line it up just so I can see exactly what's going on with it. See if I'm going to get any binding. If I don't get any binding, then I'm right in, you know, that wheelhouse, and I think everything is good to go. Then I can tighten everything down and go from there. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to take one of the rods, and I'm just going to dry fit it through. Just make sure that it centers on both of them. Now that's a little rough going in and out. We're going through there, and you can hear that noise. Once you hear that noise, you really do have to grease these bearings. So that one's not quite where I want it to be. So I'm going to loosen these all up just a little bit, like just a quarter turn. We'll find out where we've gone wrong. Now that moves a lot better. So now I will turn it back over. I'll use the other blocks just to hold up this side here. And I'll just make sure that I've got nice smooth action with that rod through there. And I am going to put in some lithium grease on these before we do a permanent mounting. We'll get this other screw in here as well. There we go. Now we can tighten that down. And again, we're not going super tight. Now you could put a little bit of Loctite in here if you so chose. I don't think it's that necessary, but so this is keeping them aligned for us. So this is keeping that rod aligned. And again, we're just going to go in a cross pattern. And we are good to go, it looks like. So there we go, nice and smooth. All right, so we can pull that rod out of there now. Let's go ahead and do the other side. We'll get this all set up, and then we will come right back. Okay, so now that we've got the Y-axis bed in place, we're going to test fit it into our frame. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just make sure that everything lines up like it's supposed to. Snap it into place. So we know right now, based on this, that this is a little too tight. One side is just a little too tight. So we're going to loosen up this side here, and we're just going to shove it over just a little bit. Make sure that we've got the right screwdriver. It's always important to have a good set of drivers around. So we're just going to loosen this up a little bit. We know that it's going to have to go over just a little bit so it rides true. And these are the little adjustments that you're going to make. Snap that back side in. Now it's a little sticky up the front. We just want that to ride so that there's no small areas in it or no sticking areas, and that's riding pretty good. So I'm just going to tighten these back down now. Now the grinding that you're kind of hearing is just the dry bearings on the rods themselves. So there we are. So that moves nice and easy now. We can pop that out. I'm pretty happy with that. I can take this right off because the next stage, we don't need this. So we'll just pop that back over here. So on the next stage, what we're going to do is attach. First, we need to attach our thermistor which is this guy right here, to our bed. And what I'm going to do is, there's a spot on the bed right there, and I'll just switch cameras again. There we go. So there's a spot right here on the bed that's a little circle. And if you grab yourself some of this stuff, which is capped on tape, you find the end. Take off just a little piece. You don't need a lot here. Just a little piece will do you. And we'll just tear that off. Try not to let it fold up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop that on there. I'm going to take this tape and I'm just going to put it on top, trying to make sure that my thermistor is flat. And that's going to put my bead where it needs to be. Now, you can see I've covered up these holes here, so I'm just going to cut this back a little bit because I'm going to need those holes. There we go. All right. And now what I like to do is I like to curl it backwards towards this portion right here. And I will use a little bit of, again, a little bit more capped on tape. This time I'm going to use a little bit bigger piece. I'll just put it down there if I can get it to stay where I want it. Okay, so we're just going to open that up, take that off. Let's get rid of this cruddy end because we don't really need it. Just trying to pretty up my tape a little bit. There we go. All right. So we're going to start at one end and we're just going to work our way back. See what I'm doing there? And we'll keep it away from the screw hole. And there we go. So now when I go to put on the zip tie back here, this will all stay in place. And we've got nice, nothing's exposed to fall into our print. So everything should be good there now. Now we have to assemble this whole unit together. On the plate itself, you can see that there's a notch here. This notch is going to go towards the back of the heat bed. So it'll go on like that. And we've got two different sizes of spacers here. We've got some 9s and we've got some 6s. I think we're going to use the 9s today. Now, we are not making this to be an adjustable bed. We are actually going to make this to a non-adjustable bed. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're going to use a BL Touch, and that's going to help us with our bed leveling later on. So let's get some screws up through there, and in this case we're going to use the pan head screws. And we'll just open up the pan heads. We'll need some nice long pan head screws. In this case we're going to use 6 of them. I think these ones should be long enough. Just make sure. Now this is the tricky part, trying to get all this assembled. We're not doing too bad. We're okay so far. The ones in the center are going to be your trickiest. So we'll do one. See if we can. There we go. Put that on there. Let's get another one down here. Now you could put a little bit of tape on the other side just to hold these in, if you like. But again, it's not totally necessary. Put that one in there, and we will put 2 more in. And here is the last one. It's going to go in there. And there we are. See if we can get this one back in. Oh, we had two fall out. Of course, the ones in the center fell out, just like I thought they would. There we go. It's kind of a balancing act, keeping them all from falling out. All right, so let's put on our spacers. And we should have one more. There we are. Now we're going to take our bed, our Y-axis bed, and we're just going to line them all up. Make sure that everything lines up nice and smooth. It will drop on there, trust me. Let's just bring that off just a bit. There we go. A little tough getting everything lined up all at the same time. You need to, you can always move things around. And there we go, they're all on. Now these two in the center may need a little bit more space because we have this little block that we have to put on, and this is essential, and it goes on just like that, but we may need some longer screws there. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So now we could use lock washers on this, and we probably should, but for the sake of time, we're just going to put on just some normal ones, just some normal nuts, just to get them in place. And then we may have to swap out those two center ones for some longer pan heads. Now, if you can't get longer ones than the ones that we're using 12s, I believe, 12s or 20s. Well, that one didn't go on very well. That did it. There we go. Now, just so that these don't fall out, I'm just going to put on a nut as well, just so they don't fall out. Now, these aluminum spacers that we're using will not cause any difficulties to your heated bed underneath, the traces underneath. It should be just fine. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and just tighten those up. We'll get out our 2 mil. Hold that nut in place. And we're not going, Hercules here. We're just kind of getting those nuts set and getting the plate set so everything kind of rides a little bit truer. There we go. Let's do these two over here. Now you'll notice I'm not setting it down on this area right here. Well, I guess I should go back to the widescreen shot. You guys can't see anything there. There we go. So I'm not putting it down on this edge where my wiring is coming out, because it's pretty easy to mess that up if you don't do it right. So we're going to drop this one in here. Now once you've got these set and they're tightened down properly, you shouldn't have any problem with the bed being out of alignment. All right. So now we've got our 2 center ones, which we may be actually able to get in there. Let's see if we can get that in there. Take those nuts off. And again, we want to put the longer end of this to the back. We should have enough room in there. that one in, get that one in. I might need a little bit of gentle persuasion. Now the parts that we're using on this are all printed in ABS. So, by printing them in ABS, oh, we may have to drop those in there first. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to drop these nuts into this hole all the way down. I want to make sure that that nut is square in there. If it's not square, you'll run into a problem. So we want to make sure that that goes down nice and square. And we may have to use something that will allow us to get down nice and square. There we go, that one's down. Let's do the other one. Oh, that kind of went in on its side. That one just wants to keep turning on us. So let's get the first one on. See if we got enough to grab that. Not quite yet. We may have to push down just a little bit harder. That should now go in there. Now I've lost both of my center screws. This is the fun part. This happens. And if they're not long enough, if you find that they're not long enough, then just go ahead and mount that first. Get that lined up. This is always the fun part. If you lose those center ones, sometimes it's tough to get them back into alignment. What's even tougher is when you're using a driver that's not meant, and of course that slipped out. That is magnetic and it sticks to the bed every time. The only reason I'm putting these spacers in here is so that we don't end up with a warped bed in the end. We got the spacer in there. We've got the bolt up through. That might just grab the nut that we're looking to grab. It's a delicate balancing act sometimes. So it's not grabbing the nut, so we're going to end up going to get a different screw, and we'll be right back. We went and got something that's a little bit longer. These ones that we have are only 20 mils, so they're not quite long enough. So we're going to pull that one out of there, drop that screw back through, hits the ground. We'll put in a 25 mil, which should be more than enough for what we need. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go, we're threading in now. And we are in good shape. All right. And there we go. So that now is all done. So what do we have left to do? Well, we are going to have to add in a couple of things. First and foremost, we're going to have to put this aside. So we'll just put that over there so we don't crush anything, get anything in our way, move out anything that we don't need at the moment. And we are going to grab our frame because we want to make sure that we get this set up properly as well. So where's our gear going to land and where is our pulley going to land? So our pulley is going to sit right there. We're going to grab a longer screw. I believe we have some here. We do so. We have a longer screw that will go right through there. We're going to grab a nut. I don't think we need any washers for this. So we're just going to place that right in there. There's a little bit of room. We might want to put a washer in there just so that you guys can see what's going on here. We're going to take this pulley and we're going to drop it right in here. It's a little sloppy, but I don't think that's going to make much of a difference in the long run. So we'll just pop that guy in there. We'll get a screw on this side. And we are going to need a 2.5, I believe, which is that one right there. Now you can take these out because we're not using them at the moment. And we'll just get, oh, we are going to have to go down to this one. There we go. We'll just get that nut trapped in there. And we will drive this bolt in. Now, based on what we're doing here, I may at some point change out the bolts or the nuts for some of these. Just so, there we go. You don't want to over tighten that. Just so that the nut goes in, you're okay. Now let's take our gear and align this properly. We're going to just back off those, which are the set screws. We're going to align our gear, and I think I'm going to align it this way, which I think is going to be better for the look of this. Now, if you want to, you can take your rod and just kind of eyeball it. And that looks like it's going to be right about where I want it to be. I'm going to tighten down this one set screw. There we go. And get my out of there, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten this one down. So there we are. Those are all nice and tight now. So you ask yourself, okay, Rich, what do we do next? Well, we take our bed, we take our rods again, and we are going to grease these up. We're just not going to do them right at the moment, because all we're doing now is we're just kind of testing things out. And we'll get that one in. We'll line them up, pushing the rods right to the front, and then we're going to snap that in. Now, because that's snapped in, we should be able to turn it over without having any problems. You can see how fast that goes down. And we can kind of eyeball and see where we are for our belt. And it looks like our belt's going to go in just fine. So let's take our belt now. We're going to run it through here. Now these actually work a little different than regular ones. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your belt and you're going to make a little loop with it. And this is going to go onto the first loop and then just tuck right in there. And we'll take this through and take it around our pulley. Once we've got it around our pulley, we'll do the same thing. We're just going to loop it again. I'm doing this so you guys can see it, but I can't see what I'm doing. Okay. Again, we're going to make that little loop. We're going to take it and we are going to wrap it around that little post. Now, if you've got any slack in this, you will be able to, I had to put this at a better angle so I can see what's going on. You will be able to take that slack out just by putting in a little timing piece. So that is in there now. It's very loose. So what I would do is I'd probably take this off again and just tighten it up by a few. You can also get timing springs, which work really well. Now be careful that you do not bust those posts off or you'll have to print another one. So they are a little finicky to get in, but once you've got them in, you should be good. Once they are in all the way, tuck that in. Now again, we can tighten that up by putting in a belt clip and that sort of thing. But for all intent and purposes, that is all there is to it in putting together the bed on our Prusa machine. We'll tidy up that belt a little bit later with some clips or with some zip ties. We'll tidy up the bars on the back here with some zip ties and the ones on the front, and we will be good to go. So with that said, that's pretty much all there is for today. I hope you guys got something out of putting on a bed for your custom build. I've showed you how to do it. In the next episode, we're going to tackle the X carriage. So I'll be showing you how to put that together, getting the measurements down properly. We're also going to put in a V6 hot end. We'll show you how to put that together in the next episode as well. So until next time, I want to remind you that we've got two videos that kind of get into this. One where we're talking more about what we're going to do, and then the second one where we've kind of put things together and we're talking a little bit more about the electronics that we're going to use. We are going to use an MKS Gen L board with some 2208 steppers so that this is going to be silent very much like a Prusa machine is when you get it. So that's some of the things that we want to try and accomplish, is make this thing silent. It's not going to have the fancy wizards that you'll find on a Prusa machine, but for our purposes, this is going to be a fairly decent built machine. And if I can do it, you can do it. So until next time, my friends, remember to hit that little subscribe button if you're new here. Also hit the bell so you don't miss anything in this series, and you get notified every time we put up a brand new episode. We will be back on Thursday with another look at this. Coming up, we've also got a couple of really interesting reviews we're going to talk about as well. So until next time, my friends, my name's Richard Cleveland. I hope you had a good time and learned something today. And until next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print.